in 75 years, we've morphed into being a chamber of commerce more than ever because we cover more issues, because the Delta's regional, and so issues are regional. In most communities, I grew up in another part of Mississippi, but in most communities, their county line is where most of their focus is. And they do a better job at local issues than somebody like Delta Council. Now, so many things are regional. Highways, water issues. I mean, there's no water, groundwater, surface water, things like that don't know boundaries, don't know political boundaries. Environmental issues don't know political boundaries, like county lines. As y'all seen with the Pearl River issues around Jackson. I mean, if you were regional, as opposed to having the downstream people disagreeing with the upstream people, you'd probably have your solution to the Pearl River.
Actually, yeah, exactly, because we've got two counties.
And see, that's right. And in the Delta, long before I got here, it was regional. So in a lot of areas, the people up here have found that they can lift better if they live together. And they do. And it's real natural for them. And they know each other. They go out to dinner with each other. They share businesses together. And I think probably the agricultural base contributed to that a lot, because farmers have always farmed in more than one county, and so there's been a regional flavor to the Delta since the time of its beginning. If you think about the way the Delta started, it started really developing in the 1890s. The Delta's not the antebellum South that folks think it is. There wasn't a Delta in antebellum times. A lot of people like to glamorize about the Delta being antebellum South, but it never was. It began developing about 1890. And the reason it did is because that's when flood control began. That's when the federal government started accepting some of the responsibility for federal flood control. And when that happened, towns started building and so forth. But if you go to the origin of why did the towns start building, it's because a resource that did not respect political boundaries was causing a problem. And you couldn't address it by putting a levee around your land. So it's just work, and you just got to keep people focused on the regional goal, and it's always going to take long. And you're always going to have to sacrifice some of your local identity. You don't have to throw it in the garbage can. I mean, you can pick it back up when you leave the door, but for the period of time that you're working on regional issues, you got to recognize that you're doing it because it's going the greater good served, but you're going to be part of that greater good. Whether it's a highway or a flood control or a farm bill. Let me tell you a story. This is kind of an anecdotal story that you'll like, and it's kind of about regionalism. When we were working on the 1987 four-lane program in the legislature, we did all these, theatrics, that you do to try to get laws passed. And we had a big rally down at the Ramada Coliseum, which is, where it used to be. It's called something else now, but we had a big rally. We had 900 people from all 82 counties come down, and all the legislators showed up for it. And it was during the session, right before the session started. And we had about strategically about 10 people lined up on the stage to speak, and they were business people and higher education officials from different parts of the state. We had to get our geography right so you can get your politics right, you know, to get the necessary votes. We were kicking off our campaign to get it passed. And from the Delta, we had McKinley Martin, who was at that time, the president of Oklahoma Community College. And he was about the 9th person out of 10 to talk, but all these luminaries, Warren Hood from Jackson, who you probably heard of, Morris Lewis from Lewis Grocery Company in Indianola, Leo Seal from the Gulf Coast, you know, all these knockout names. McKinley was not as well known, but up here he was just as famous. And he said, look, I want to tell you something. I think it's great people from Meridian and Gulfport and Hancock County and Indianola, and all of us are here together, and all of us are here together for one thing, and that's to get 1,085 miles of 4-lane highways built in our lifetime. And we're going to have to pass a tax to do it. But he said, I want to remind y'all now, he said, this 900 people in this room is just like the thousands out across the countryside. He said, I used to go feed the hogs with my granddaddy, and we'd leave the back door, and I was always barefooted, and the ground seemed like it was always cold. And we'd walk down there to that fence where those hogs were in that fence, and it had to be 10 degrees, and granddaddy'd get that bucket, dip up that food, that sweet feed, and he'd throw it over there. All them hogs would be piled up. It'd be early in the morning, but they'd be piled up, sleeping on top of each other. And I remember looking up at Granddaddy and saying, Granddaddy, you know, everybody thinks a hog's dumb. Them hogs are smart. They laying up on each other to keep each other warm. And Granddaddy said, son, ain't one of them hogs keeping each other warm. They keeping themselves warm. And he said, the reason we're here today is to keep ourselves a highway. And I'm telling you, I want Highway 61 to come right by Clarksdale.